Well, welcome to another Friday night. I want to do something just a little different tonight, still within the reparenting thing, but it's all the time my mind is kind of working on new ways of helping people understand complex trauma, narcissism, generational trauma, so that they can begin to see things in themselves, in our culture, so that they can begin to see unhealthy coping skills and find better ways of coping and handling the situations that they face. But also, I'm always constantly looking at what's happening in our world today and just interpreting partly through kind of the complex trauma lens to see some of the stuff that's happening today is just complex trauma worked out on a global stage. And so, in the reparenting sense, what every parent faces is that the child that is born into the world basically will face a couple of life paths. Really, there's three different life paths. Out of those three paths, two are going to be quite attractive to a child initially. And it looks like it's going to lead them to happiness. It looks like it's going to be something that they want to do. It's going to give them what they want, but they're actually going to result in negative consequences. It's going to lead to a life of pain down the road. The one that is actually going to lead to life and lead to all that they want is the one that something in them is drawn to it, but something in them doesn't want to go there because it doesn't always give instant gratification. It doesn't always suit the child's brain. So let me outline these three different life paths because everybody in recovery faces these three life paths. And culturally, cultures choose life paths. Leaders in cultures choose life paths, and that sets up the environment for the whole country. And so understanding these life paths is, to me, very, very important because when a person comes out of complex trauma, they have a natural tendency to go to two of the life paths. A desire to go to the other life path, but a fear, the good one. And so they can bounce around between all the life paths without even realizing it. And so to understand these life paths, I think is just a helpful framework in understanding what reparenting looks like. How do I help a person choose the right life path? So the first path is the path of love. And that's the desired path. That's the path where the whole world benefits, the individual benefits, cultures and families benefit. And what's interesting to me is that a child is born with a built-in instinct as to what love is. So if you think of a child and their natural instincts, they have a natural instinct for fairness. If something's not fair, they go, "That's not fair," and they get upset. They have a natural instinct for kindness, for respect, for empathy. If somebody's in pain, a child naturally is empathic towards them and nurtures them. They have a natural instinct to be authentic, to want to connect with people. They have a desire for safety, for security. Something in them seeks that out. All of those define what love is like. And then they have this instinct that there needs to be consistency if that's going to happen. There needs to be stability if that's going to happen. And then they're repelled by cruelty. They hate cruelty. They hate injustice. That's not fair. They hate corruption, any abuse of authority. So what you see in a child is that deep in their core is this understanding that if you treat people the way you want to be treated, that's their instinct, that's love, and that's the way you should live. And so a child who's in a safe environment, who receives unconditional love from their parents, that child then is able to choose the love path because they can now be vulnerable. They can now connect. They can now open up. They can now respect others because others are respecting them. There's a give and a take where you are treated equally. And so they choose this life path. It connects with that inner instinct There's no cognitive dissonance inside of them. There's just a total, this is right, this feels right, this is good. And it results in a child who can explore, who can develop their gifts and abilities, their personality, who can learn tools, who can learn all kinds of things that will make them a better person. Their love pot is full. They now want to give to others. They now want to help others. And so their normal approach to life becomes love themselves, love others, take care of the world, treat others the way you would want to be treated. Their priority is love. What is best for others? What is best for the world? That is the focus of their thinking and their life. And so that's the path of love. And we talk about that all the time. And it's great in movies, etc. But that's kind of a quick definition of it. But then a child encounters a pull towards a second path, and I'm going to call that the limbic brain path. So inside this young child is a brain that basically is the limbic brain, and the limbic brain operates by, I want to do what makes me feel good now, instant gratification. I want to do only what makes me feel good, and I'm only going to make decisions based on if I feel like doing something. So things are guided by emotions, not by what is naturally healthy or best. Things are guided by instant gratification, not by what's good long term. So the struggle of a child's brain is it looks for pleasure by indulging desires or needs that result in pleasure. So food, relaxing, all of those different things that give natural pleasure, now I want to do them more and more. So as a result, the child has the instinct of love, but also a limbic brain, which now can at times pull them in very different directions. So now they want to care for others, but now they just want to be lazy. They just want to not share with anybody because they want more of this for themselves. And so now there's this little battle that's happening between them, between the two paths. And so a child is prone then to make very foolish decisions that go against love, decisions that seem to result in happiness, but what they find is it only results in instant pleasure, but then they feel guilty afterwards. Then they feel empty afterwards. And gradually begin to realize that this limbic brain gives instant gratification, but it starts to hurt my relationships. It starts to lead to a less fulfilling life. So that's the limbic brain. So what begins to happen in the teenage years is the child's brain is developing. So they're transitioning from being dominated by limbic brain to being dominated more and more by the cortex, the wiser brain. In the school system and the university system, we have your freshman year, your sophomore year, your junior year, your senior year. The word sophomore, your second year of university, to me has always been fascinating. It's two Greek words, Sophia and moros. And Sophia means wise and moros means moron. And so basically what it's saying is second year is a wise moron. What that is really trying to grapple with is the teenage years. You're living out of your limbic brain and your cortex. So sometimes you're a moron, sometimes you're wise. And that's what's happening in the teenage years. They're exploring more and more their limbic brain, partying, doing whatever they want, just indulging every desire, but something in their cortex is going, I don't want this life. This isn't the life that's going to lead to true happiness. It's starting to figure out in many cases that the life of love is what actually leads to true happiness. And you have to control some of your urges and desires and think long term. And so that is what is going on. But then there's the third pathway. And this is the one we talk about all the time that comes out of complex trauma. And it's the path of survival. But the path of survival is also really the path of power as the ultimate goal. Love's not the ultimate goal. Survival and power is. So it's really what a child has to do in danger. They need to survive. And they need to survive as the highest priority, because if you don't survive, you're dead. So you got to do the things necessary to survive. And so now survival becomes a higher priority than their instinct to love, because you just got to survive. Love, you must be willing to sacrifice. Safety is more important than love. So it just moves up a little bit. So what comes out of that is the survival of the fittest. So I always think of, if you look at a dog and a wolf, and this is not a pure illustration, but it gives you the idea. Survival of the fittest in the wolf world. What are dogs? Well, domesticized wolves that experience a loving environment, and they now go to survival of the most loving because they're safe. But when you're not safe, it's dog eat dog. It's you have to be a predator. You have to attack. You have to eat those weaker than you. It's a very different set of rules. It's a very different way of living life. One is the path of survival and power. The other is the path of love. And that's what's happening. And so when a person's in survival mode, it's the survival of the fittest. So the strongest survive. So you have to get rid of anything that makes you weak. So in that world that's not safe, what makes you weak? Well, if you share or express certain emotions, that makes you vulnerable and weak. If you show empathy, if you love other people, that makes you weak. People can use that as leverage against you and use it to control you. If you have a conscience, that makes you weak. So now to survive, you have to get rid of all of the characteristics of love and humanity that would make you weak in a danger environment. You got to shut them down. That's the only path to survival. And you got to replace it with power. You got to be stronger than everybody, smarter than everybody. This is now the most important attribute. This is the one that takes away your chances of being hurt, that enables you to survive. So I want you to stop and think about that. What that's basically saying is that the path to survival is you have to do all the things that make you strong and take away all the things that make you weak. In other words, you have to become less human. Sure, it's the path of becoming physically stronger, but do you see that you're murdering the non-physical parts of you? And it's actually making you weaker overall. It's making you less human, less able to love. And that's what is happening. To gain power, you are sacrificing more and more the very things that are all part of being human, that make you truly strong in a loving environment and that enable you to love. So you can see that survival requires this change of priorities. It requires power over love. Now, I want to develop that and really get you to think about it, because I think to me this is such an important part in understanding complex trauma, but in understanding much of what happens in our world today. So if you follow the path of survival, the path of power, what are you required to shut down inside of you so that you are stronger than everybody, so that you are not ever vulnerable? Number one, you got to shut down any desire to connect, because connection makes you weak, because now you care about somebody else. You got to shut down trust, because if you trust somebody, they could stab you in the back. You got to shut down authenticity, because if people see the real you, they could use it against you. They could see weakness in you. You got to shut down empathy and love, because if you care about people, then that's going to make you weak and vulnerable. You got to shut down many emotions, sadness, fear, vulnerability, on and on. You have to be zero emotions other than anger, because that's what makes you strong. You got to shut down your conscience, because if you feel guilty about stuff when you have to survive, that's going to make you vulnerable. You're shutting down all these key elements of what makes you healthy, what makes you human, what makes you capable of connection and relationships and love, in order to not be destroyed. But you, without realizing it, now are just empty inside. You've shut down the things that make joy and life and fulfillment and contentment and peace. You shut down all of those things. So now there's an emptiness, a deadness inside. But what's replaced that? But now you have fear and shame as the most powerful emotions deep inside of you. But for most people, because everything's shut down so much, those get shoved to the subconscious level. They're not even aware of it, but those emotions are actually guiding them, running their life. But they don't see it. They just try to think they're strong. But actually, they're becoming weaker. So take it further. These people, though they're shutting things down, they still have basic 12 needs. They still have the basic drives and desires that every human being has. But all of those drives and desires can only truly be met in a safe, loving environment. So now they're going to try to get those needs met, but not by the right means. So let me show you. Value. We all long for validation and love just for being us, for our basic personality. We don't have to perform. We don't have to do anything. We just are validated for being us. And we know we have inherent value. But this person now, how do they try to get value? Through externals. They don't feel it internally. They got to prove that they're better than everybody all the time. So they got to have more money, more accomplishments, more power, more possessions. All of those things. Life is about now establishing my superiority and my value through externals. They still long for respect. A person in a loving environment who's authentic and genuine, they get respect because they follow the path of love. They give, they help others, they treat others the way they want to be treated. They naturally get respect, they give respect. But the person who's living now to survive and power is their priority, they're putting others down, they're abusing others, they're hurting others in order to keep themselves safe. But they still want respect. But they can't get it now because they're not following the path of love. So what do they do then to get respect? They use fear. They use externals, possession. They get other people who are trying to get their validation to give them validation in order to try to get respect. And so that's not working truly. It gives them a feeling, a little bit of respect, but it's not genuine respect. And then in a loving environment, people give loyalty naturally. I'm committed to you. But in a power survival environment, there's backbiting and betrayal and abuse and neglect happening. But people still want loyalty. They see the value of loyalty. They know loyalty is important in relationships, but how do they get it? Through lies, through propaganda, through fear, all trying to get their needs met, but now through very unhealthy means. They still want love, but they're not willing to give love. They're afraid of love. So what do they now do to get love? Well, they use lust. They use sex. They try to get people to adore them, get others to meet their needs, though they're not meeting other people's needs. It's giving to getting. It's getting through leveraging other people. It's not healthy, but it's trying to get their needs met. Same with intimacy. They still want intimacy, but they're not willing to be vulnerable. They're not willing to truly connect. They're not willing to trust the very ingredients of intimacy. They don't truly respect others. They don't truly love others. So now what do? Well, let's just get intimacy through superficial activities together, through sex, through talking about we're bros or we're comrades. Let's use all the right terminology of family and intimacy, but there's no true intimacy there. They still long for pleasure and happiness, and the fact that they're dead inside makes them long for it even more, but they can't get it through true connection, which is the main piece to healthy intimacy, through respect and love. So how do they get happiness? Only through pleasure. They're not getting it through getting their needs met in healthy ways. They're just going back to the limbic brain and let's just indulge stuff in order to try to get pleasure. They want to feel alive, but they feel dead. They can't follow the path of love and connection to feel alive. So what do? I will feel alive by adrenaline rush activities, by chasing power and feeling power and control, by being cruel, by creating fear in others, by buying things, by getting validation from others. Those will be my means of feeling alive. But that's just destroying people. That's just hurting people. So I hope you see that they're still trying to get the needs that can only be met truly by love, but they're doing it through all the wrong means. It's giving them short-term little bits of satisfaction, but it's leaving them empty, unsatisfied. Needs aren't truly met. And so the emptiness and darkness is growing inside them. And so, bottom line, those who continue to seek power as their greatest goal miss out on the benefits of love. That's the bottom line. And that means they don't get their needs met. That means that the darkness and emptiness inside of them continues to grow. So, let me take it a little bit further. To continue to pursue the path of survival power leads to narcissistic tendencies. Now, this can work out in 3 ways, and it's important to understand it. Number 1, it can lead to a pure narcissist, a person who tries to compensate for feeling awful inside, for having shut things down, who's trying to look powerful, be better than everybody, superior, that they overcompensate and they go to, it's all about me, I must be smarter, I must look better, I must always get my way. I really don't care about people, I just want to use people, but I will groom people, I will love bomb people to manipulate them. That can happen. And some go that route. But others, it's more subtle than that. It's basically the narcissistic tendencies are hidden underneath fawning. And fawning is, I'm not able to compete with those very powerful people. So how do I survive and get my needs met with those powerful people that I can't compete with? I am a people pleaser. I am a chameleon. I wear masks. I do what other people want. I develop codependency tendencies where I put others' needs ahead of my own. I make sacrifice after sacrifice. I work. I give, so that others will like me, so that others will meet my needs. So it's still all about getting my needs met, but I do it by I act loving. I act so kind in order to protect myself, in order to get my needs met. Third one is some people, and this is important to understand in recovery, some people go the path of love once they get in recovery. But when their limbic brain gets triggered by fear, by shame, by anger, their limbic brain goes back to narcissistic tendencies. So they've been walking the path of love that day, but when their limbic brain gets triggered, all of a sudden they want to go to the path of power. You better do what I want. Nobody cares about me. I got to get my needs met. It becomes all about them. They become narcissistic in that trigger moment. And so the path of power, in order to survive, my needs have to matter more than everybody else's. I have to go to using people more than loving people. And so there's a narcissistic pull that begins to happen as people follow the path of power. And the longer they stay on it, the more that narcissism works itself out in different ways, from very overt to very covert, but it's happening. So I hope you're seeing that these people who think that they're becoming superhuman are becoming less human. So think of the ultimate in our kind of world is a soldier. A soldier is basically trained to be the ultimate survival of the fittest, that they're in danger, that they have to defeat the enemy or to be defeated. And so therefore they are trained in a complex trauma environment to shut down anything that would make them look weak and to develop all the skills that make them physically stronger. And our society often puts them on a pedestal that these are true heroes, these are true men. But most of them go back home and they don't know how to have loving relationships. They still are in survival mode. They don't switch back to love mode, and it causes all kinds of problems. So they have suppressed the very parts of them that they thought made them weak, but it's the very parts of them that make them capable of love and relationships and connection and that really bring joy. And it is so, so sad. Let me just reiterate. When people stay on this path of power, they are controlled by shame and fear. More than that, they see this solution to everything as greater power and control. Who needs love? As long as I'm in power and control, get my needs met, everything will go well. And so then it becomes all about their image, not about their internal world. I just got to look good on the outside. So that means I got to gain my value through possessions and position and accomplishments and power. And then I need people around me who act as my mirrors or my echoes, who just agree with me and say how wonderful I am, sycophants. And so all of that is the world that they're ending up creating, but it's controlled by shame and fear. Do you see that they're survival mode, but also in the limbic brain? Because the path of love is the path that ultimately needs the cortex to be able to process what love looks like. So these people are back in the limbic path and the survival path. Those two are now coming together, and it is creating a person who's still thinking like a child, acting like a child, trying to be strong. Okay, so that's the three paths. Now I want to take this to the next level. And there's going to now be a progression of events that can happen over time that can result in a spectrum, but it goes like this. What happens if the person on this survival path was a child or a teenager, and now they become an adult and they still stay on this survival path in their thinking? That's what they think they need to do. They need to be this strong person. And then they end up in leadership. Leadership in a home, they're the mom or the dad. Leadership in an organization. Leadership in government. They're in a position now of authority over other people. But they're still following the path of power, not the path of love. Now they're following it in their own life, but they come into a thing and it says, well, just follow these, be professional and follow these love rules. And they might be able to do that for a little bit, but their deepest commitment is the path of power. And that's going to begin to come out in the family, in the organization, in the country. They're not really going to be professional and follow these love rules. So in this position, a whole bunch of things are going to happen, this position of leadership. They're going to use this position to enhance their power, to further their own agenda, to get what they want, to strengthen themselves, they think. And so now they're going to use people. They don't care about people. They're going to neglect and abuse people, but they're using them to get more of what they want. So what they're actually doing now, because of their position of power over other people, is they're now making a more unsafe world for other people. And then when they wound these people, those wounds are never healed like they would be in a healthy family where the authority hurts those under them. They don't want to heal the wounds, so the wounds remain unhealed and there's even more damage done, and that creates generational trauma. So now they are creating an unsafe environment for the next person under them, requiring them to have to go into survival mode, creating generational trauma. So do you see how this can happen in a home, in a community, in a business, in a church, in a country? And if enough people over time who are living by the power path end up in positions of authority, they can start to change a culture. And that culture can become unsafe. That culture becomes what we call a shame-based culture. The culture now basically is about conform to those in authority. That's the only way to be happy and have peace. It's not about your needs. It's not about everything being equal for everybody. It's about conforming to those in authority and about looking good, making them look good. That begins to happen, and that can change a culture terribly. It's not the path of love. They still talk about love, and we're going to talk about that. They use the term love, all of that to try to indoctrinate people, but it's still the path of power, and it's destroying those under their leadership, creating generational trauma into the next generations. Now, let me stop and say there's two important dynamics that are happening here. So the narcissist now, who's in the leadership position, they're living by the path of power, but they still remember their instincts as a child about love. They still know what a love path looks like and feels like for people. And so now, to gain power, what they do is they use acting loving to get in their hidden agenda, to manipulate people. So now they act like they love people by making sacrifices for them, by listening to them, by giving them gifts, all of those things that causes the person to feel love, but they're just doing the actions without the attitude. And now they can gain power over that person and manipulate them and use them. So now they're taking love, distorting it, and using it to increase their power. And that's hurting more and more people. What to me is another piece with that's so important to understand is the authority figures, they demand that everybody under them treat them with love. You better respect me, be loyal to me, be nice to me, forgive me. They know what love is and they demand it from others. But they don't give love to anybody. They do some loving acts to groom them and love bomb them so they can manipulate them, but they don't genuinely love anybody. So now there's a double standard that gets set up. And they now require love, but do not give love. So you again see more and more damage. But there's a second dynamic that is so important to understand. So if these people in authority who are living by power end up with people in their organization, in their country, who are coming out of complex trauma homes, what's happened to a child in complex trauma homes are really two things. Number one, they've already gone through an abuse of authority. And they've been told it's their fault, they're not good enough. And so they've got this core belief of shame, that they're not good enough, they feel inferior, and they seek external validation to feel better about themselves. Secondly, their normal relationship template is relating to narcissists. They've had to do that since they were an infant. That's the only kind of relationship they know. That's their normal. They are good at learning how to survive with narcissists. What they don't realize is that now in adult life, because of that relationship template, it feels normal. It feels right. So they get attracted to narcissists. So what then begins to happen is all these people that are coming, this is the next generations of trauma, that are coming out of trauma with shame and these relationship templates, now are drawn to narcissistic leaders, and they welcome narcissistic leaders to rule their country, to be pastors in their churches, to run their businesses. Now they've created a system that's feeding itself, creating more and more damage. So if you just think of this in terms of a country, over a period of time, what is going to begin to happen in a country? Well, the way to rule and maintain power, because you got all these disgruntled people because their needs aren't going to be met, is you got to oppress people. You got to indoctrinate people that they need to conform to the leaders. You got to tell lies. You got to use propaganda. You got to minimize the value of treating others as you want to be treated. You got to somehow justify that they're bad, that they're the enemy, that they should be mistreated. You don't worry about meeting everybody's needs, only the needs of people like you. You don't care for the really weak and vulnerable. You focus on financial and military strength, not on human character. You look down on weakness as something bad. You misdefine strength. And then those who are naturally kind of more vulnerable or weak, so women, children, the poor, different racial groups, minorities, well, they get oppressed. So that's what begins to happen within countries where the path of power gets taken further and further and further, and people in leadership who choose the path of power are allowed to rule. But take that further, what begins to happen now in the minds of those leaders, other countries are now a threat. I have to be superior, not just in my own country, but to other countries. And so it's no longer about helping other countries out. It's no longer about helping people. It's all about being superior. And so everybody now who doesn't agree with me is an enemy, is a threat. So there's very binary mindset. If you're not for me, you're against me. People are not loved and cared for. That all changes. And so now everybody, I have to be better than, I have to be more powerful than, they have to be subservient to me, they have to agree with me. And so it goes even farther. Now everybody else is saying we should help these people out, we should help this country out. But there's a fear that, oh no, those have been my enemy. If I help them out, I will be showing vulnerability. I'll be showing love. I'll be showing weakness. I might have to be willing to make a compromise from what I've done in the past. That is showing weakness. And if I'm perceived as weak, then they could try to take advantage of me and become superior to me. So I have to remain strong. So therefore, even though I can see logically it'd be good to help them out and make a compromise, I can't give in to that, because that would make me weak and give them a chance to get one up on me. So I need to be entrenched in my strength. That's the thinking that has to develop. But do you realize what's happening there is leader is becoming entrenched in a prison where they can't grow, they can't resolve problems, they can't welcome relationships, they can't respect human dignity and care because they have to remain strong. So they talk about love and respect and rights, but they're afraid to give it. They talk about the path of love, but they're afraid to choose it because they're stuck in survival mode. And so you can see that over time, the world becomes less safe. It descends into power struggles, greater tension, more war, oppression of the weak, abuse, misuse of people, misuse of the environment. There's just more and more negative consequences that unfold in the world. So that's taken the path of power to its ultimate end as people continue on it. Now, I just need to qualify. It is possible for power and love to go together. We don't see it tons, but we do see it happen. You think of a person with great loving character who gets so respected and put in position of power, but they never abuse that power. They never use it to get their own way, to dominate others. They use it to serve others. They use it to enhance the life of others. That's how power is supposed to be used. So how do we grow in this area? Because most of you can see, yeah, I've been on the path of survival power. I've been on the path of the limbic brain, and I now want to get on the path of love. How do I stick to the path of love and not give in to the limbic path and to the power path? So just recognize that the limbic and the power path are part of your subconscious thinking. Your brain has been there. It knows how to survive there or what to do there. All because of complex trauma, all because of being a kid. But the instinct of love is still there. Many don't quite know how to get back to it, but they begin often to gain insight into how to get back to it when they have children of their own. Then all of a sudden, yes, that's what love is about. So be patient with yourself. It takes time to relearn love, to catch yourself when you go back to the path of power or the path of the limbic brain. And so you're going to have times where you bounce around in a given day between love and power and limbic. Don't beat yourself up for that. You're going to get triggered. You're going to bounce around. Catch yourself when you go to the wrong path. Figure out what's going on. Get back to your cortex. Get back to the path of love. Every time you do that, you're going to grow a little bit more. But what happens if you're living in a country where the leadership is going the path of power? The leadership, it's starting to degenerate into oppression and abuse of people. Find others who are on the path of love. Connect with them. Make your lives lives of love. That will influence others. That will potentially make a big difference in your culture or your part of your culture to help others and stop some of the damage. For a person who's been on the path of survival for years and there's a fear of love, because taking the path of love would make you vulnerable again. It opens you up to getting hurt. It's a very risky path. And you find it almost safer to stay in the path of power. Here's what I want to leave you with. If you find safe people who are walking on the path of love, risking love is going to be one of the scariest things you do in your life. But it will be the most rewarding thing you do in your life. It will result in your deepest needs being met in a healthy way, in a satisfying way. It will result in true joy. Following the path of love is worth it. It's scary, but it is worth it. I really encourage you, if you're starting to see these three paths in your own life, and that this path of love is the one you desire, but you're afraid to go down, it's much easier to stick to the other two paths in the short term, but it leads to terrible long-term results. I hope you'll have the courage to say, I gotta figure out how to walk the path of love. Well, that's the end of another Friday night. Thank you for being with us. I hope that helps you. Have a great weekend. We'll